No, I was down in Sydney, but she was doing the driving down here. My car's up in Queensland.
Cool.
Just to do these, I think he said Tara mantras for Malcolm Simpson.
Who's Malcolm Simpson? Okay. Something happened? Oh, that's it. Okay.
So I don't know if he wants me to read out the whole message that you sent. But there's some Tara mantras which interesting. Here we have to try it very softly.
All right. No problems.
Jigen sawat mana ni badenda sawadira ngala rewa kyapsons rewa moranda rewa yubitan nebatin chikyo sare message tingi ani chikyo tanjiro ani kanji nebati yubita tandan zamle ya again the just should trade was romans kanga mamu shuch tatu samang chedo ani drama searching ta ani drama sangadi tingor chik satwana yabundos rangan zindango matsuko.
Tomatsachi and Dominisachi and Sachi. All right, so good morning, everyone. Pamela Eldridge, Geshe's friend and also one that helps him with English, has sent him a message through that one of their good friends is dying. So Geshe thought that it'd be nice to say some prayers on behalf of the person. So his name is Malcolm, right?
Geshe wants you to read.
All right, so Malcolm Simpson and Claire Simpson in New Zealand, they're very kind and loving people, are always helping others and bringing happiness to others. Sadly, for all of us, Malcolm is dying. So they have an attitude of acceptance and readiness for this time, and Malcolm still has his sense of humor, but he suffers strong pain in a vertebra of his neck. They asked me to please give his name to you at Chimrezik. So we pray that Malcolm is blessed with comfort in his body and that Malcolm and Claire and their families and friends filled with love and peacefulness at this time. So Geshe said that we'll do some Tara prayers and the recitation of the Tara mantra on behalf of Malcolm and also Claire. But not only that, also keeping in mind that so many people around the world are suffering now in different ways and forms due to COVID-19 and due to other reasons as well. So we will also include others in our prayers. So we're going to do praises to Tara once, 21 Taras.
270, I think, it might be, no, not really chanted.
page 270, did you say?
Yeah.
270. And after that, we'll do a recitation of the Tara mantra, one round.
277.
277. Thank you.
Okay, so just to clarify, that we're not able to chant this all together as we normally do. So if we could, otherwise we all have to have face masks on, and even that's not legal actually. But anyway, let's not go into the details. But if we could just chant it not loudly, just very softly. It's sort of more like talking. That would be great.
All right, so I'm just going to also tell you to the people at home, just to make sure that we're on the safe side. So due to the current rules and regulations, we cannot really sing it out loud or to a certain tune. Otherwise, we would have had to wear masks. So we want to, of course, make sure that everything is done correctly and safely. So we're going to say it, we're going to say the mantra, the prayer, the mantra just in a normal tune, softly, not loud, so that will protect us and others. All right, so page 277, praises to 21 Taras. Om prostrate to this noble transcendent liberator. Homage Taras with heroic eyes like lightning, instantaneous, sprang from opposite stems of the lords of three worlds and one lotus. Homage he whose face combines 100 autumn moons, blazing with light rays, resplendent as a 1,000-star collection. Homage, golden blue one, lotus water born in hand adorned, giving effort, calm austerities, patient meditation, has fear. Homage, crown of Tathagata's actions triumph without limit, relying by the conqueror's children, having reached every perfection. Homage, fitting to Tara, whom desire direction in space, travel with the feet in the seven worlds, able to draw forth all being. Homage, worship by all the worlds, Chakra, Agni, Brahma, Maru, honored by the host of spirits, co-praised and diverse actions. Homage with the trodden pet sounds, destroying false magic night. Their feet pressing left outright, in blazing, raging fire. Homage to the destroyer of Mars champion. She was frowning lotus faces, was a slayer of all enemies. Homage to the heart of fingers and golden. Likewise, my soul excited, all directions was adored. Homage to the joyous radiant crown, and Mary laughing with Utaras, subjugating Mars dead. Homage to the soul, shaking from him with the home side, saving from him from his fault. Homage to the adorning face, and all the message heart. Homage to the head, sending homage to the homage to me with the blaze like him and the fire round. Rise with left and joyous around you, truth of enemies destroy. Homage to the starting ground with her command. Scanning with the light of moon, the seven devils she has gone. Homage to the greatest peaceful, she is raised with the vow. She endowed with almond soul, destroyer of the greedy. Homage to the just surrounded, tearing from bodies the sun. Freezing woman knowledge mantra, arrangement of it in lay. Homage to the raising letters, homage to the syllable. Bhakti Sanchita three worlds, Nira Mandara Vidya. Homage holy in a hand, Hima Vinudipale. Which was speaking Tara and Faith, totally dispelling poison. Homage to the golden neck, and the kingdom to all. Honored in a dragon splendor, she dispels the rings and conflict. Homage to his honor, beings in silent form. We taught her to Tara, she dispels the big contagion. Homage for love liberating, power set freely. Destroyers of spirit chapters, young his Moses supreme. These graces with your mantras and prostration starts out 20. Tare to the sound, tare to the sound, tare to So, Geshe and I don't have Malachi with us, so you'll be the mark of when we. All right. Untitled Oh yeah, she's all right, so rather than now doing the other prayers, we'll just go straight into today's session. So So it was good to start off this session in this way. As Geshe mentioned, Pam. Pam has some interest in the Buddhist tradition, but it's not, Geshe thinks it's not necessarily that Pam sees herself as Buddhist. And it's also likely that her friends, Malcolm and Claire, that have made that request are likely, not necessarily Buddhist. And yet, when we're being asked to say some prayers on behalf of others, if they would like us to do that, it's important from our side to make sure that as much as possible we fulfill the hopes and aspirations of others. It's important that we also kind of in the way that we behave, in the way that we interact with others, that we let others feel that they can rely upon us, that we can fulfill hopes and expectations of others. So it's good to use opportunities like that to make sure that we nourish and develop this attitude.
탑시 자밍 토니 아니 간주 아니 추비다 지문함게야리 점부터야리 아니 추시야리 간지 두스 삼 토니 아니 탑 만들 토니 간주 밀레 펜도 치바나 아니 탑 찍는 찍 토니 제투야 된지 용거로 왔으라.
So today was not just a single occasion. Actually, we were asked before this in previous years also to say some prayers on behalf of others, and Geshe feels quite happy that we were able to hear those requests and to say prayers on behalf of others. Because if our aim is to be of benefit to others, benefiting others is likely to not be done only through Dharma teachings, only if we teach others the Dharma. There are various ways to be of benefit to others. Saying prayers on behalf of others, doing some recitations on behalf of others, teaching Dhamma to others, all of them are different ways and methods for being able to be of benefit to others. So it's good that we use whatever opportunity or way or method that we have to be of benefit to others. And in so doing, we can also think of the future. We hope that in the future we'd be able to have a fully fledged, fully working Gompa, or you could say fully fledged monastic community. If we were more kind of, if I study it in a different way. So fully fledged monastic community, meaning that we'd be able, as monks and nuns, to perform the 3 rituals of monastics. So currently, in order to perform those 3 rituals of monastics, which constitute the basis of monastic community, we need to have 2 more fully ordained monks that will join our community. So Geshe is sure that it will happen at some point. We have hopes that it will happen at some point in the future, so that we'll also be able to have the prerequisite for having a fully functioning monastic community with those 3 basic rites that monastics should be doing. So keeping that in mind, whether you're a monastic, whether you're a lay person, then it's important to, first of all, hope and aspire that will come to pass, and also from our side to work hard to do whatever we can in our current ability to make that happen in the future.
Gyurumbu dele shugzangengi anchipena chayanarita tsuma gembatso inchiminchik kyansu dokchik digogdus ra kyansu chikchilaya rondev karchigodu dog digoya di nganzu maungba ani gomba tsendinji yoyagi jiten tsu di ani ngesam del tu dendos ra ani kyansu chikchilaya 가서 만치고 소리 따오만도 소리 아니 지기 삼바디 지기 겹겨 마치어 소리 로데바이나 안간서 카고 빼차 그랬어.
So particularly thinking of the monastic community that we have here, right? So we have monks and nuns living in this place. Geshe has been part of this monastic community for the last 6 years, and we've been doing things together. And some of us here have been monks and nuns for a long time, right? So they're senior in terms of their monastic life. So particularly when we think of how we interact with the community, what is our position in our community, it's important, particularly for the senior ones, to help and support each other in the monastic community, to be helpful rather than kind of sometimes sticking to herself or kind of having sometimes argument with each other or what have you. It's important to, as much as we can, to be harmonious with each other, to support each other, to help each other with whatever we can, because that would be the key to building a fully fledged, functioning monastic community in the future.
어두지 디딩아 some and as a taji revachi doji 먼저 제롬치기 소망을야 tembachoki kawapametis 요 temba카데지 kawapamel야 아니 꿀리게 샤주티 tembachoki kawapame기 내된 tem분 제네 주반데스 인지기 tem바디 탑 간식이 표현진님비 넘버치기 민전다고 쇼세디 딘지기 피기 심슈치모랑 요머데네 간지 아니 수주기 상문나노야 아니 룽아 이승기 누가 칸여바디 아니 템비 템바 찔러야지 아니 샹접슈야기 톨레지 땅 상비기 samlodi gasgata bayes ro inayada ko mi korala yachi savigie ani shija yonding ki ani shuj meba ani nibala ya chi ani mi chambo sore chi khasang menge sore chawa inza ani chi yoros inaya ani monam jaya re jewa jaya di ani tembachila ya ani pena sambigi kolon diken drogiyes
Tila tsik tsigan tamandi karina nyumi
kandas
kandi tsik chik den the time ba
khachame
mare de kandi kasatuba de
neden yemuzin de ba tab kanshiki pewanjin number chibi ninzen da washos tab kanshiki ani sanji tembale chi penna samchin pen ninsen kund ani songtang
Geshe also quoted a verse that is taken from the writings of Lama Tsongkhapa, referring to the many eons in which the Buddha has worked hard, providing teachings for the mind stream of others. May we be able, in the guise of monastics, to also carry out those actions to be of benefit to others, so that those teachings will flourish. So whatever we do, keeping that in mind, we act with our body, speech, and mind in general for the sake of the teaching, so that we will be able to be of service to the teaching. And Geshe said that at least from his side, he's been trying as much as he can to be of service to the teachings. And of course, we can all recognize that our ability to do that is somewhat limited. Geshe said that although he's fully committed to be of service to the Buddha's teaching, still you can say that in some areas he lacks knowledge. He also has a lesser ability in terms of being a stateless person. However, still, in whatever way he can, he's trying to be of benefit to others, even so far as just keeping others in mind and saying prayers, doing recitations on behalf of others, and also conducting here the study program. And we can also do whatever we can in our current abilities.
These days, Yashujilaya, Tanda Injigenla, Genla Tambodi, Ngalaya, Zewachishi, the Nimana, Morang Injila, the Kadulaya, and in Yapcha Chansan, Yapche Yonche, and Chuzilla Injila, then the two was and non drogores, in a level service, Jayamaras. Mora didn't delay the so deep and a move with cutting on the Yaroji Tonga Kadalaya, Kadam Chodinchik, the Morang Reogan, Kadam Chodin Shamaina, and it garden in on shoot to us and it gets a Gatamba, Nigab was done more than Kadam Chodinji and the Shaya killing cherries, Chejon Dipe, Jerumchi could sell Machonji Shanginsa. And the Jelia Kejichontin. And the dingy modelia, long sovereignty coming on the Manzutati garden dos championship galleria, Choji cook out the Morang cosmos. And the data, then to them never in the Genruchoni Namoya, Choji Banda Adishati, Kasotati, sent in a Kremevanza, good Yomaras, Nea, and Pasu Kamishuni, and the Morangi Nigalo, Tabshi Chiaki, and Kenishesons. These are 아니 라마 셀링바 라마 아디샤기 그 가든스는 딘디치 곰바디 기 강기 상콜 근장 강틀러와 아니 샤야기 카시질라 카미시 페마스 버프니 멘테치도스 아니 간스 따드 템지 로 아니 야부치 간지 마마디 샹투 디모랑 쪼은 겔렌치 거리 디리 아니 사자 식살라의 페브리스티 진짜 이 랑만 타신 요양 겸주 원은 나로치스라.
Also, Anna McGee is here with us. Geshe is dubbing you in, Anna. So, you know, Geshe mentioned before Pam that is helping him with English, and Anna McGee was Geshe's, his first English teacher. Not only she worked hard in teaching Geshe English, she used to come and teach, do an hour of English teaching with Geshe, and then she also brought all the ingredients for food and she cooked lunch, so there was like 20 for the price of one, English and food. So Geshe said that from his side, he was rather lazy, not doing his homework properly, so he's a bit embarrassed in admitting that. But anyway, a while ago, I think it was last month, we had the inauguration and the opening of the Nalanda Master's Garden. And at the end of this celebration, Annie was speaking to Geshe about also adding a stupa, a Kadampa stupa, to the Nalanda Master's Garden. So Geshe thought that it's a good idea, and we discussed the location of the stupa, and there was also a discussion of the size of the stupa, whether it be the size of Jelinpoche statue or smaller, or the same size. Anyway, then Geshe took a tour around the statues together with Kyabje Lama Sopa Rinpoche. He introduced at the end of the event the garden and showed Rinpoche the statues. And while he was doing that, Rinpoche was asking questions about where is this statue, where is the other statue. So the deal is, or the story is, that we have 17 Panditas of Nalanda. Of those 17 Panditas of Nalanda, there is a selected group of 8 scholars, which are called the 6 ornaments and the 2 supreme ones. So Atisha, for example, who is part of the 17 Panditas of Nalanda, he's not part of those 8 scholars, right? So he's a subset of the 17, but Atisha was not counted in that subgroup of 8 scholars. So then in the discussion, in introducing this garden to Lama Sopa Rinpoche, and Lama Sopa Rinpoche was asking after the other statues, the Geshe said that it's just those 8 scholars. And also in conversation that Geshe had with others, then there was the idea of also adding a statue of Atisha to our array of statues. So then Annie McGee then became encouraged or inspired by that. So she said that she's willing to kind of take it on and make that happen. Geshe was also thinking of the location for the stupa and statue, because now we have 2. We have Kadampa stupa, and we also have an Atisha statue that are in the pipe, at least in planning. So Geshe was thinking of a location. So one suitable location, some people brought it up with Geshe, was behind the compound, not far from the incense burning half stupa, or incense burner. Let's keep it like that. So around this area, some people say that it's a good place to put it, and Geshe also thinks that it's a good place. So we'll continue to look into that. And since Annie said that she's happy to take it on, then Geshe said that that's an excellent thing.
And the Lama Atisha Gardens should be what is Lama Atisha Garden in Shangis.
So that will be the Lama Atisha Garden, right? The creation of the Lama Atisha Garden.
What is that? The cousin and someday, neither Shishin Song, Tabs, Temper Song, but the niece, Temper the Shebo, Temper Temper, David Temper equally, good now yam tong so now non never tap temperature in your shots.
All right, so let's go back to the text and pick up from the point that we left yesterday. So we're going to pick up from verse 29. First off, let's look at where we are in the commentary. So we're looking at the method for guarding the mind, guarding mindfulness and introspection. We're now looking at the extensive explanation. Yesterday, we finished the section that describes the disadvantages of lacking introspection. And now we're going to pick up from guarding mindfulness as a method of guarding introspection. First off, we're going to begin with the brief presentation in verse 29 before we go on to the extensive explanation of how to guard mindfulness as a method for guarding introspection. So let's look at verse 29.
And tembe soya derota semna temba mena and kar jan shabai ya and chis temba mena jen shibangalos do korano ya temba jet sabaina mashiba the chikpares majama the chikpares soyares ra.
The heading of this section is guarding mindfulness as a way of guarding introspection, as a method for guarding introspection, which is spot on because without mindfulness, there would be no way that we can act knowingly, which means that without mindfulness, we'll be forgetful. If we are forgetful, it is tantamount to not knowing, unknowingly. So guarding mindfulness is a method for guarding for guarding introspection.
So the and kan jamba kan shimba telia the shin some dinis on the chick and it's all in the chick similar transferred matanchin you shabana and it langsan jedrich jedrich chawasaris kan shimba di yang and similar transferred down by na and it pigila kumdi chick tebaina then it gurumbu dech and Yajata Saris, Penangan Sobatun, Piglia, Jambash, Kusus Shingione and Titole, Tolonch and the Prince of Geshe, Shuchim, Dashachi only, Seminole, Gurian Dividas. The Shogidoja, then the show them a jigni, Lola Simchi, Titirisha, Tirikonda came someone, the sunny case, someone, Peshin Yimanisun, the Jedo does ra. Then the Temba Yavasha said, Zodi, and the Khan Shimba Delia, Comditant. Jinza Lenny Namba Karin Jetu Badi Yang Samotaya di and Chambaniva Shabu, Shana Dixaris Ra.
Mindfulness, and even more so close placement of mindfulness, is what we employ in order to make sure that whatever we study, whatever we train it, is not going to be forgotten. So whatever we study, whatever we train it, we want to retain it in our mind. Because if we're not going to be able to hold on to it, to retain it, it will be forgotten after a short while. So we want to develop longevity to the things that we study, to the things that we train it. And the key for developing non-forgetfulness or being able to retain them is to repeatedly recollect them, to repeatedly remember them. If we are able to repeatedly be mindful of them, in that sense, to repeatedly remember them, we'll be able to hold on to them through a process of familiarity over a longer time, to build longevity to that. So think about it in terms of, for example, trying to commit something to memory. You might try to memorize a verse or two. You will do that memorization in the morning, but you're not going to repeat it later on during the day. You might do it again in the following day, but just doing it twice and expecting that to be retained in your mind over a long period of time is probably not going to cut it. In order to be able to retain it, to have longevity to the things that you want to remember, the repeated memory or the repeated recollection is necessary. So this is what we refer to when we speak of close placement of mindfulness, building up the ability to retain those things, to remember them over a longer period of time.
and that the chung royaji madobi tini ya komba royadi kagbushu chagosares pena kaji gyawroji sonjulaya gyawroji sonju kap nijilaya ani peshe nimatagwa rojilaya ngege omanjubada rangdendi yani and logo yoseni sar kashi sonsons the gyawroji omanjuba kengiyore juba rangdengi King young cousin Sigota. Young Siwandi, Sar Bena Chabeti, Sar Gatama Tevano, Commander Gatama Ragaris, Mungu, Kiwatamba to Sungur, the Gatama Saris. The court church and Drovana, so Yagi drove with that. Namanashi, dead to you, Yagi Maravas, Yagi drove your Maravas, or Dilrojin Saris.
So we study a text such as Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, or we read a certain text, a certain book, and if we do that repeatedly, if we go through that again and again, our understanding becomes greater and greater, and through that we come to develop stable realization, stable ascertainments of the subject matter involved in that particular text. So for example, with Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, if we repeatedly study this text, read through this text, study it, our understanding of that will go deeper and deeper, and we'd also be able to develop stability with respect to the subject matter of Shantideva's text. Whereas if you study it only once, as a one-time off, and you think that that's enough for me, I now know what Shantideva was speaking of in his guide. From this point onward, it is likely that forgetfulness will set in stages, so that you will not improve. Actually, in time, you'll forget more and more. So there's a value, there's a benefit in doing those things repeatedly. And this is also what His Holiness the Dalai Lama referred to in the last portion of teachings that he gave last week. Over 3 days, he taught in praise of dependent rising, and he said a few times that he still looks again and again at Chandakirti's supplement to the Middle Way, and also the other commentary to Chandakirti's text, which Geshe says that what His Holiness was indicating, that it was the need for repetition. So why do it in a repeated way? Why should we do it again and again? The great masters of the past said that if you read a text 100 times, you draw for it 100 meanings. So 100 meanings or 100-fold understanding. So if we do something like that as a one-time off thing, right? Study something only once, then if we're able to retain it, that's okay. But it means that it would just be what it is, just that, without building up on that, without improving.
Chamba, the Yi Kim the Judis, Yi Nandu Sukudi, Ti Goni, Kundu Namyam Medons, Kundu, Big Shijan Laya, and Kundu Namyam Medons, Kedi, Chambanyam de Sona, Nansung never tap chamber chedi. Hemata Yi Kim never shall chaos.
So let's look at verse 29. Therefore, do not send mindfulness away from the door of the mind. Should it happen, place it closely by recalling the sufferings of the lower realms. Because there are many faults if one does not have introspection. Do not send mindfulness, which does not forget the virtuous objects, away from the door of the house of the mind. In case mindfulness weakens and does leave, remind yourself of the sufferings of the lower realms and immediately protect the house of the mind again.
Niba Shebal Sun, Chi King Givishin Tembatan, Nangi King Sujin Yela Chebatan, Chembe Shijin Gibitsulu, Tambuchi King Givishin Tembani, Lamatan Trouble, Cambridge Tembatan, Jibi Gedin Kuchela, Chambadela Yes.
Let's look at the extensive explanation of guarding mindfulness as a method for guarding introspection. There are 3 points in that section. First off, the external condition, relying on the virtuous spiritual teacher. Then the internal condition, having correct mental attention. And then we're going to look at the way introspection is developed through mindfulness. Let's begin with the external condition, which is relying upon a spiritual teacher.
Terda the season di Sonya di Tab Chi Gang Tab Yakshu di Rang Givising Badi the Peshi Yakshuris Pena Nada Jimbaina Suzumazik Manshu di Lama Givising Tembi Garden the Tenny and Tandanga Dindidoji Chatuya di Gacha Gochu Konga. Niesama, Jacek Coach Kogul and the Chokiri Gigin Gigin Caterashas, Ra, and two Siachi, Kanjinigi, and a Tambu Metsegi, Kachosagi, and a Rab Chwani Chin, and Tanda Parduchi, and the Langan Digan, Kyotubadi, and me Gigin let them be Cater in Choyabadi, Ni Jacek Jatam of Sorgudus, Ra.
First off, it highlights that the external condition is reliance upon a spiritual teacher, upon a virtuous friend. And Geshe says that at least personally feels that this is certainly the case. Having been nurtured by the kindness of his spiritual teacher, Ruth Lama, for most of his ordained life, Geshe says that maybe 95% to 99% you can attest to the validity of this external condition. So Geshe sought ordination later on, earlier on in his life, and having been able to follow the path of the Dhamma, follow this path up until now, is certainly due to the kindness of his virtuous friend, his Ruth Lama.
Mela Geshe the Kazus loves and Tangalia, Yagidra Mudumada, Kanji, some Lawius.
His Geshe's precious teacher taught him everything, beginning with even how to make a cup of tea, how to wear his robes, how to speak to others. That was the basis of improving. All those things, even beginning with those basic things, were taught to him by his teacher.
Sama sew tengus, and then Gacha Gadam sew tengus, and again, Kalas or Tam, and Tandangala Sondi and Castle, the tinting is sewing each other, a tengus. Decadal then Kanji and Gandig Langa Digala, Tandadrodi, and gain cutting Yachin, then Chonduma, Gendo Didiji, ngala ya lamden chingi mewa na an tandanga khawar jili yumi gyachi gyatamba tsema tiwa su semle tawa na tsema tiwa chiresi.
Geshe has those vivid recollections, crystal clear recollections of those instructions that he got from his teacher, even as far as how to cook your food, what to cook and so forth. Even that he has those really clear memories of being taught by his teacher. So that came through solely due to the kindness of his teacher. Without that, without someone to show him the path, Geshe said that he would be half-baked now. Right? It wouldn't be like fully baked, only half baked.
Dadi dangan thadol rode di kenza de duma tharwa nimajila ngadanda bi kamjing ge se cheba kamjing ge bi ne ngadu chogo chunju jora ti ngo so pi jinglam tangin da jamju shungi de jik chejora ngad dikher da dikhe nga so di da jinglo da ro la ni geng sha de sho tuding ye ani ta 다시 사마한테 그런지 얘기하는 그지 쉬워서 그냥 가려도 쉬방에 계속 없선 게도 거라겠어요. 이거 쓰시ட்டு
Just thinking of how would you say something like that in English, just a second. No, there's a way of expressing stuff in Tibetan, but doesn't really translate well into English. Let's try it out. So in the monastery colleges, you have people performing different roles. One of them is called the teacher of the college, which basically means that you're responsible for making sure that the monks are following the rules, even as far as that they dress well and so forth. So you're like the discipline master within a smaller community of the house or the college that you belong to. So Geshe was appointed at some point in time to fulfill this role. So he dressed up wearing robes, and then on the way out, Geshe's teacher was staying with him at the time. So on the way out, he jokingly asked his teacher, "So, what do you think?" And his teacher said, "Hey, this is it is evident that you're one of those students of Khenso Lobsangla." Anyway, it sounds better in Tibetan. In English, it doesn't really translate well. Yeah.
But these are the dindrojre ngal only tani that chi kivishin said, and a ketchum shuchik, and a ketchum, and a garden chimbu, do namia, and a jetemevachik, chagius.
Anyway, Geshe is saying that with respect to the conditions that are required in order to guard mindfulness is a method for guarding conscientiousness. The first condition that is stated here is the external condition, which is relying upon a virtuous friend, spiritual teacher, which, as Geshe said, that this is, at least from the point of view of his experience, it is something that is crucial.
Givishini lamigi and Tinyeta Lamrum Re and Donga Tamanolaya, Jungle Dangan to cover in Jadan Shugoyasi Kimundus Inaya Chetangi Lamalaya and a piggy Dordigini Shabananshingi that Kichudian Sech Soyority Chetang, which Tishayores, Inaya Nidu Santangi, Suzuki and Serve Mangulaya and Joy Dingi, Lady Lama singing Chita, and send Delaya, Piggy, Yondin Checholaya, Sea Chili, and Lama Tenshava, Italia, Chikmandrach, you met Sangudos, Kashikashilaya, and Piggy Lamalaya, Jikting, Chiung, Tonsulaya, Lalom Yeda, the Kenchi Menaya, and Kamu Karsonaya, Sosole, one Tanigi, Pendoya Deva, same thing devi yung dia tinji yung dos ro tinza di da namjingan yu khajin ya serb legi lama sech ngoni tinji yung chogo series da tinji yung na mixeros te mato bi ane lama la ya ngoni ge 가서다 지 시신 도박 지가 퇴숨 공숨 아니 지 만요 아니 지영님께 라마질이야 땡투바이나 아니 소소라야 로게라야 소소야 견줘야기 개발 친구 연구하러 왔으라
So in following a fully qualified spiritual teacher, there are explanations that are coming from different perspectives of what makes a teacher be a fully qualified teacher, what are the characteristics that they should have. And we don't need to now go into this extensive presentation, what would be a fully qualified teacher from a sutra perspective or from a mantra perspective. There is, for example, the Sutra Alamkara, the ornament to the Mahayana Sutras, that explains the 10 qualities that a fully qualified spiritual teacher should possess. But then on top of that, Geshe says that when he thinks about it, then you can also speak of a couple of lamas or spiritual teachers. There is one that you have a karmic connection with. That would be a karmic lama. And there would be another one that they have displayed great qualities in this life. And thereby you decide to follow that lama. So then thinking of how you create a connection or maintain a connection with those lamas. So for example, some encounter a lama and you could say that from a worldly perspective, they might not have much qualities of erudition and or qualities of being a great scholar, and still whatever advice or instructions to give you, you find it very helpful and you have great devotion to that person. So in that sense, whatever they tell you for you becomes helpful. So although you might say that in worldly terms, that person might not have those greater qualities of being a great scholar and so forth, still due to karmic connection, that would be your karmic lama. And then you have those that have those qualities of being peaceful and being serene. Those that have those qualities that come through study, reflection, and meditation. And if you rely upon those lamas, again, there's a great difference, or there is a process of transformation that occurs in your life.
kanji ani lamdin chanzan chik ra one lam sendi jimbaina lam sendi jimbaina ani somalaya same thing ji chu labja nangaros ra chu sholaya chiros inza tempatela tersedi gaji gatamba Yunguris can be just tempatan jivike de kuchela tempatela nyudiki sedi ra odi yunguris.
If you rely upon a fully qualified spiritual teacher, where they give you teachings that stem from the bottom of the heart, they lead you along the stays of the path, then you will easily be able to generate mindfulness. And this is what the next verse is stating. So looking at verse 30, explaining the external conditions, relying upon the outer condition of a virtuous friend, from following the lama, through to advice by the abbot. Out of fear, the fortunate ones are respectful and generate mindfulness easily.
Tembasomi tabni rangi kembo dang beben dang sambal sumber chebala sobi keo lama dang chobale kembu sombi damba dan chisu temba dan ngotsa shiba dan shengi me dobi jibi kawa da tembi kanza tabala kubar chebala gewi minna majeb temba dala di kibi te sam gong som kang chekya temba kyumam kebar chawos.
So then looking at the commentary to this section, it says, The fortunate ones respect the trainings and will follow the advice of the rabbit, preceptor, friends in pure training, and the like, out of a feeling of shame and consideration or shame and embarrassment. These are methods for protecting mindfulness, since they generate easily the mindfulness that does not forget the virtuous object. They should become experts in the practice of mindfulness, regardless of whether they listen, contemplate, or meditate.
So the rang la de what's your kanji rangi sem song to ya chi ra rangi lama givi shin dun de ani kelan tamjavi gi tamchi ki domba te dan geva yena ani digma sambi gi susu sem no soji yona the gi woni gi temba de shijin kyong to ya gi tabi yakshu di there is ra odachi sheri chi la gure sambi gi 아니 세난지기 토는 로고 초나 아니 다 뭐고 차와싱기 아니 텔레비니 너무 쓰고 짜오니 되면 왔어.
So then it says here, out of a feeling of shame and consideration, or shame and embarrassment, which are two important factors in the cultivation of respect for the trainings and following the advice of the abbot as methods for protecting mindfulness. So shame and embarrassments are two important factors in that process. So we have shame that is self-oriented and embarrassment that is oriented towards others. Of the two, Geshe feels that the most important is to have a sense of shame. And that you think of, for example, the vows and pledges that you have made in the presence of the Lama. And with a sense of shame, you think that it wouldn't be okay, it wouldn't be right at all if I were to transgress the vows and the pledges that I have made in the presence of the Lama. With embarrassment, which is an abstention from faults, an avoidance from faults on account of others, where you think that it would be embarrassment if others caught me or see me behaving in this way. It might be something that is helping you to abstain from certain wrongdoings or certain faults, but still you can say that if you only have that, then there is a danger that it will develop into a sense of hypocrisy. But if you only think of, I don't want to behave like that because others will see me. So then the most important, Geshe feels, of the two is having a sense of shame.
Nipa nangi kin suji yela chebanis. Sanji chanju sambata kundu tome sigwate. Teta tamji chena no tabadan yesushi. Teta samni ngosatan kudan jig de hejenons.
Then the next section, which covers 6 lines, is the internal condition, having correct mental attention. Let's look at those 6 lines. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are endowed with unobstructed sight of everything. Say, I'm always in the field of vision of their 5 eyes. By contemplating this, shame and likewise respect and fear are attained.
Terdanganzu Samnamaya Michi Samdore, Michi Chedor, Samsam Rajimodo, and a Sanji Chansam get 2000, and a Tome Chinda, and a signature Samsung gate, so at the pay cover and was. Tinza and the Dimayaji, Nanzungoni Tanivichi, that's Sanji Chanju Samase, can't love them someone, Tang Muma, and Sanji Chanju Samase, Tindy Shu Yobata, Tindy Toby on the Dingy Yobadi. And it's Sam Nanola killing the Mazuna. She told me with that red was rock. This same thing in the killing the Yovana, and me Pajan, the Sanji Chanson could see there, 좀 된 게 시슈가리 삼성기 산남 소지여바나 아니 장신기 상보다 야구차야 그래도 asra.
So here, let's not just wonder if others are looking at the actions that we take. Here, particularly, it refers to being cognizant of the presence of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that have unimpeded vision. And that with unimpeded vision, they see whatever we do, the way that we behave. So often when we have conversations or when we state points from a Buddhist point of view, we speak of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas having great powers, being present and so forth. But sometimes we just say that, but it doesn't really come from the bottom of our heart. It's not like a heartfelt attitude. In that if we don't avoid misdeeds in thinking that actually Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are present, and with their unimpeded vision, they see whatever I do. Therefore, I should abstain from such negative behavior. If we don't think about it like that, we might say the words, but it's indicative that we don't have a great trust in whatever we say. So think about it. Buddhas are present. They're not only present here with us, they also see whatever we do. So if you think about it like that, it's a good way of thinking that is so helpful in making sure that we avoid a certain form of misdeeds.
Terdiza the namgyung on the shudegi. Only temper cutting chinky Zabanantar cutting chinkoyadi. Any temper cutting chinky Tembalaya Shin Tabataba Chombaina. Telling only Tana the Yotiach seminar. Managerum took Yons Chodiagi Chigi, Kazi Javarum Chigi, and the tended to be long down there. Tiris Ra. Then the Jesus rubbed the Chunkurte, Javison la Jamba men said. Dumba di Jesus shooting, rubbed the Chonyobatan, rubbed the Chonsam Masebigi, Tigi, any touch Rabasum, so Kivigi, Joseph Dembigi, and Denusum Laya, Tursum Consum, Manu was Chichomati, and that missing the Nangata, Chow Yakshu, Ying Gunguyabati, and Dina Siwchagdosra.
And we can also do that when we learn from the accounts of the life story of the Buddha, the kind teacher, developing an informed faith through that in the Buddha, which is what Lama Tsongkhapa referred to when he spoke about how his mind transformed or expanded in praise of dependent arising, in which in one of the verses he related to that. He said that in following the teacher and teachings, I became ordained. Not only I came forward or became ordained, I also learned the 3 Pitakas, the subject matter of which are the 3 trainings. And following the process of study, reflection, and meditation, I was able to follow those 3 trainings in my mind. So this indicates the best way, the best activity, the best way, to follow those teachings of the Buddha.
Rather than that Dambadi Jis Shuche and Dambadi Jinju Chichi, D Sonlaya, Jamba Mamma Chi Chondia, and the Media Pomodozina. They must have a Kawasanguta, Yaburas, Timtijiks, some Goyadi, some two Goyadi, and Bekichambo.
Chizandi Kasa Mike Pumutenzo di Majana. So, but also, even if you're a lay person and you haven't been able to, as follower of the Buddha, to study or to train, still, just by the virtue of being a follower of the Buddha, you can consider yourself, the follower of the teacher, you can consider yourself to be very fortunate.
Benada Ji Suzudovena Yakshu di than the 20 Jesu Rab Chonson Nashingi Nanzu Rabjon Pomotsolaya and Yakshu di Chagin Tambu di Tao Suma Yakuchedi Suzudovena Teguchi di Telechigis. And Suzu Mazenawalaya Chikta, Lochunjung Senamundu, Lochung Chosami Chin, and a Rabbichon, Kandapatun Drotuyadi, and a Kawasanshi in Samsongi, so the Mission Tomayana Chik or the Chawaya Bujundu, the Tsumaya Bujundu, Samdi, Sam Dini, and a Teguing those, Yashijadam, the Kalzunchim, Teguing those. That deep Tolaya, Teni, and a Tuzongoni Yabujiovena. Javredos, Maduchi Kazus Jamba in a ya, Zagi, Shizagi, Javshun, Pomogi, P. Yabuji Mena, and Shilagochik, Redo Tiza, and some logi, and a Shugasudi, Rabchongateres, Rabchongatolaya, shit, Supreme Lava Shizav Tony. Anything into the Shiragi Lava Joana and Sanji Kombadi and said Delia Juktu Mutu Sagi, Topa Samaguju Surchiki. What did it was Rak Sanji Sundu, Sumaji, Dodanga Yonso, Konji Ondi, and Jordan Teresas.
So then, in thinking about it, Geshe reckons that the best way to live one's life, having set up, would be to become mundane in following the teacher and the teaching. So still, Geshe said that, no, of course, if you're a lay person and you haven't had the opportunity to do much study, just being a follower of the Buddha, you're incredibly fortunate. But Geshe said that at least when he looks at, for example, just monks and nuns that he encounters, for example, here, when he thinks about them as being able to become monastics, to come forward, this is the best way to live one's life. Also appreciating his personal situation, having been able to become ordained at a very young age and still follow this path of ordination, living as monastic. Geshe feels that he has great devotion to this path. So whether it might be the monastic that he meets, a monk or a nun, he has that strong faith and devotion in thinking that such an excellent way of living one's life. But then if on top of that, you not just become a monastic, if on top of that you engage with study, reflection, and meditation, you're creating an excellent basis for your life as a monastic. If you don't create that good basis for life as a monastic, there are situations in which you could completely lose that good basis of remaining as a monastic. So you acquire that basis of living as a monastic through study, reflection, and meditation on the trainings, beginning with the training in ethical discipline. And if you make effort, if you become diligent in training in ethical discipline, you're creating then the basis for training in concentration and training in wisdom. And if you do that, there's no doubt that on that basis, you will attain the state of liberation and the state of omniscience. So this is an excellent way to proceed.
Jean Sangi the Janju Sambata, you do kundu, Shija Tamjila, Tomemeba Zigba, Zeba the Demba, Teda Tamji Jangana, Dribameba, Dang, Tawani Sushi, Tedder Samni, Jean Gunzen the Chibin Watertown, Demba Chola, Kubatan, Namen the Jigba the Dembi, Teje non the Temba the Demba Chawas.
The commentary says further, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can see all phenomena without obstruction, regardless of place or time. So one remains at all times clearly in the sight of the five eyes. Considering this generic change, which takes oneself as a reason, and because one has respect for the teacher and the Dhamma and fear of the fruition, one should take care and practice mindfulness.
Zumba tembe shijin kyambe tsula ni temba kitsu tang teli shijin kitsu lo kambu temba kitsu ni teni sanji je temba tela yanda yang chung.
So we looked at the internal conditions having correct mental attention. Let's look at the way introspection is developed through mindfulness, and that consists of 2 points. First off, the last 2 lines in verse 32 cover the way mindfulness arises, and then the way introspection arises from that. So it says, how to generate mindfulness. They also repeatedly generate recollection of the Buddha.
Tetel samba dine choda gendo de chibi sangi gyo de jisu chamba kansa tela yang ta yang dun jongwi konjo sum chamba tela de kiwo
A person who thinks in this way will also recollect the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Because this happens repeatedly, they will easily generate mindfulness of the 3 jewels.
In the commentary to verses 30 and 29, is reference to virtuous object. And that new virtuous object is specifically referring to Bodhisattva.
All right, so in verses 29 and 30, there's a reference to virtuous objects, observation of virtuous objects. So is that referring to any virtuous object, or is it a particular one like Bodhicitta? And yeah. Dila tsikche nista gutan sunchu dila yul tawa dila chik sashtwa, yama yul temba yul tawa sashtwa. You the give you then the shower na gawa kaimba the give you kaimba the chamba chena jigaves yemana kabdila give you the mikpa chewa ina chamba ina mixegi chanchugi sem dandila sofa chegures.
Yeah, then anzugi chamba nyevar shagoya di Lenny number jet, Ross, did that give you sena, give you somebody call a thing, pay or a call in key or a call in the compound doors, Lena, Chetan, Dembi, Niru, the tenny, give some chick pay orders. Demba the Zumbi injigi, Namchula tenny, give some the pay orders, Tinza and did it, give you the chair wrong, the Moronagi, Inji Yobadi, give you the shashores. Tig Inji, Chambadi, and Manyamachin, Droyadi, you Koram Majeva Chedred was raw.
Yeah, here we're looking at the object that we become mindful of with respect to close placement of mindfulness. So Geshe can start, for that object, we need to have discernment that distinguishes between the positive and the negative, the good and the bad. So that discernment between the positive and negative, the good and the bad, is the virtue that we focus on in the development of that mindfulness. So with respect to that virtue, we wonder, how do we generate that virtue? How do we sustain it or maintain it? How do we increase it more and more? Well, in order to generate it, to maintain it, and to increase it more and more, we need to look at virtues that correspond to reality. To ask ourselves, what is correct or what is incorrect? What is real? What is unreal? So to develop that discernment, being able to distinguish between the positive, the negative, the correct, the incorrect, what is true and what is not true, is the way to move forward or to make a progress. So Geshe feels that this is the type of virtue that we look at here in the context of developing close placement of mindfulness. And when we develop mindfulness, we need to make sure that we remember that we do not forget that, right? So we remember, we do not forget what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's do some dedication. Protect myself and others.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you, Geshe. Thank you. Thank you, Katsun. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Geshe and Katsun.
Yeah. So whoever wants to sit aside, you can go with this.
Number 8 each side. We can have a look, eh? Let's go have a look.